Next, I would like to introduce our graduate student speaker, Brad Perfect. Brad started UW in 2013 after receiving his bachelor degree from physics from Harvey Mudd. As member of the Environmental Fluid Mechanics Group and the Computational Fluids Group, Brad conducted computational research to understand the effect of wakes from ferries to shoreline erosion. His dissertation research explores the role that undersea mountains play in the production of eddies and turbulence in the ocean, which has implications for the formulation of climate models. Brad has been a long-serving officer of the Mechanical Engineering Graduate Students, also called MEGA, and he served as the president of this organization for one term. He has also been a course instructor and teaching assistant for a wide range of courses. Brad will be joining Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory this fall as a mechanical engineering analyst. Please join me in welcoming Brad to the podium.
Congratulations, graduates, and thank you to everyone in attendance today for being here and showing your support. My name is Brad, and I've worn a lot of hats in my 6 years here as a student, instructor, researcher, and student representative. But I think graduation speaker might be my most colorful hat. It's an honor to be speaking in front of you today, colorful hats notwithstanding. So now that we've all earned our degrees in mechanical engineering, maybe someone can tell me what a mechanical engineer actually does. For my part, I was looking at fluid turbulence generated by underwater mountains. If you read my dissertation, please don't, but if you did, you would probably guess that I was from the physical oceanography department. Another dissertation project was looking for clinical applications to patterns of muscle activity with cerebral palsy patients. That sounds pretty much like a physical therapist, if you ask me. Some of you were using machine learning to devise ways for people to give hand signals to robots. This project would certainly be at home in a computer science program. And we've got wearable chemical sensors, carbon fiber climbing equipment, tidal turbine control systems, the list goes on and on. And yet, despite this incredibly broad range of projects, we're all graduating from the same department. So how would you define the field of mechanical engineering? Seriously, I'm asking. Maybe instead of trying to rein in what it is that we study, it's best if we define ourselves by what we do. And we solve problems. Usually with math, sometimes with duct tape, occasionally with violence against the inanimate objects, but usually with math. And I think that's really special. In what other discipline do you get exposed to so many aspects of science? It's important for us to embrace the breadth of experience that we have. Just because you spent a year on a capstone project, or the last 6 years studying an incredibly narrow field, that doesn't mean that that has to be your future. They say that when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Each of you has spent considerable time practicing with your own hammer. Maybe that hammer is machine learning, or carbon fabrication, or MATLAB. Whatever your hammer is, keep in mind that as mechanical engineers, we have an entire toolbox. The wrench of differential equations. The chisel of thermodynamics. The Laplace transform tape measure. The duct tape of, well, duct tape. If you haven't done so, I encourage you to talk with one of your classmates who is working on something totally different. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with how well we can communicate across sub-disciplines and even offer meaningful feedback. What I'm trying to get at is that as mechanical engineers, we can do almost anything. We each have the tools we need to attack an incredibly diverse array of problems. So don't be afraid to launch yourself into a totally alien field. It might be uncomfortable for a time, but you'll figure it out. And every one of us here today has been made uncomfortable and challenged by the trials we've gone through to be here. The problems that forced us to reach into the toolbox and use a new or neglected technique, those were the ones that really mattered. And as many of you are probably all too aware, those are also the ones that are the most fun for me to assign. A mentor of mine told me that the great thing about being a mechanical engineer is that you continually get to reinvent yourself. This particular person started off working with laser velocimetry, but then he got bored of that and switched over to the material sciences aspects of laser damage to glass. These days, he's known as a signal processing guru. He's managed to excel in all of these areas, and he casually explained to me, "Brad, it all boils down to differential equations. Once you get acquainted with the jargon in the background, it's all the same at the end of the day." So you can do anything, I might add, but you can't do everything at once. The nature of the world today is that our problems are increasingly more complicated. It's incredibly rare to tackle a problem by yourself. That's why undergraduates work on capstone teams. And that's why grad students are so bitter. Joking aside, I should point out that research grants are increasingly going to large multi-institution collaborations. So we see that in the graduate world as well. No matter what area you end up in, chances are you'll be working for a team, and often a multidisciplinary team. That's another skill we have. We're conversant in so many aspects of a project. We're a perfect conduit between the drastically varied aspects of a large project. So, moving forward, I'll ask each of you to do something. At the reception, talk to someone who worked on something totally different from you. Really engage with their work, and remember that you have the tools to have a real conversation on the subject. And never stop doing that. As mechanical engineers, our ability to adapt to almost any problem is our greatest strength, and I believe the defining character of the degree that we just earned. That's all I have in terms of inspiration. I would, however, like to close out with a couple of memories and thank yous from my time here. It's been great to be in a community with such hardworking people, but sometimes it's not so great. Like whenever I would get the idea to take advantage of a Sunday morning and the free parking and come down to the mechanical engineering building. Without fail, no matter what time I showed up, the mechanical engineering building would already be buzzing with activity, and every single parking space would be taken. I'll also never forget about running office hours and needing to go grab my senior level physics textbooks from undergrad because the conversation had gone so far beyond the material for the course that we were studying. I was blown away by the curiosity of the undergrads I was teaching. I think all of us here owe an enormous thank you to the mechanical engineering staff, to the lab staff, for the technical assistance, without which many capstone teams and research projects would be dead in the water, and to the advising and administrative staff, for the support, encouragement, advice, and delicious Thai candies, Juan Lisa. Thank you to the faculty, both for gracing us today with your florid regalia, and for your efforts as instructors, researchers, and mentors. Lastly, thank you to all of the graduates for making UW-ME such a great environment in which to learn and work. Congratulations to the class of 2019, and thank you.